my name is Helen Collins. I'm a KPO specialist and have been workshop lead for our 4th Rapid Process Improvement Workshop, which is effective preparation for TURP patients, and this is our Friday report out. So why did we do it? We had a project form. Patients attending urology outpatients who choose TURP surgery can experience a frustrating and lengthy journey to their day of surgery. These patients often arrive at clinic, both prepared for tests that are needed and have little direct contact with the clinical team. The variation in information that is shared with these patients can cause confusion, and as a result we can fail to meet their expectations.
Hello, my name is Jimmy Parvin. I'm a KPO specialist involved in this workshop as team leader. This is our target progress report, which shows the metrics against which we'll measure our improvement. We selected the steps for the nurse and consultants in the clinic, the time for the patient in the clinic from when they entered to when they left, the number of patients attending repeat pre-assessment, which is slightly further down as our defect measure, which was identified at 64% of patients who were coming twice to the hospital for their pre-assessment. Our environment, 5S, which is at the bottom, was about the challenge for staff to identify the correct patient information within the nurse's room in the urology clinic. We calculate tack time, which illustrates the pace of the work needed in the clinic to make the demand for patients, and that's calculated at 7 minutes 50 seconds for the team in clinic. Our value stream map illustrates the patient journey through this process. It shows us the time spent in each of the steps in the process and also the wait stay in between. The Kaizen bursts around illustrate the wastes and the opportunity for us to improve during our workshop.
Hi, my name is Julie Dennis. I'm Business Manager for Urology and Process Owner for this workshop. During our RPIW week, we were all challenged to think about our processes from different points of view. We looked at how different companies would approach problems, for example, a Lego company or the BBC. We then looked at how people would approach things differently by different types of people, for example, a manager, a visionary, a thinker, a planner. We then went to speak to a number of patients to collect their views on their experience so far in our urology service. From all this information, we identified we had 3 principles that we needed to follow: communication, preparation and information. These 3 principles moulded our thinking for the entire week.
Our role this week is to look at the preparation of a patient before they attend their outpatient appointment. The observation form shows a patient being prepared for the clinic. This is from the patient checking in, having to drink to fill their bladder, having their consultation and leaving the clinic. This was a total of 64 minutes 15 seconds. From the ID generation forms, we looked at the following. Did the letter contain all the relevant information, and was it easy for the patient to understand?
No, it didn't. Therefore, we changed the letter to inform the patient to attend the clinic with a urine sample, full bladder, and complete the questionnaires. The letter was formatted in a style whereby the important information was highlighted and stood out to the patient. Questionnaire sheets were formatted into a booklet to send out with the letter.
After improvements, we implemented this process with a patient. It showed by a patient attending clinic prepared with a full bladder, the patient's experience was greatly improved. This showed a reduction in the time the patient spent in clinic. After this improvement, this showed the patient's time in clinic reduced to 21 minutes. The standard work allows this to continue in the future.
My name is Carter, one of the urology registrars. Just talk about the adjustments and improvements in our flow through clinic, specifically for male patients with lower urinary tract symptoms requiring a flow rate assessment prior to consultation. Several of our idea forms that we did on our first day specifically highlighted clinic issues, all adding to an increase in time in the department. As you can see from the standard worksheet, the red line represents the patients coming in the door, visiting most places around the poolside centre, lasting usually in excess of an hour. One of the problems was the delay in identifying these patients. There's also a very stop-start of clinic flow. There's lots of seating time involved in that red line, and also delays in giving prescriptions and also written information regarding procedures that were being suggested. So in our, as you can see, there's 10 stages in that. There's high step counts, particularly for the nursing staff, as we mentioned at TPR over 200 steps for nursing staff. Our standard work combination sheet demonstrated that there was a lot of wait time, particularly for the nursing staff, which possibly represented wasted time, and the percent load chart demonstrated both our nursing and consultant staff. Tap time, you can't see very well on this, is 7 minutes 50. So both our team members involved on the clinic were outside that tap time in the initial percent load chart. So we're looking for areas of improvement. Solutions from our idea forms that we implemented were a dedicated clinic in the morning with staggered appointments to allow us a more accurate assessment. We've already talked about informing patients better beforehand. We wanted a method of identifying patients clearly, promptly, and establishing their readiness to perform a flow rate assessment. We also looked at the proximity of the flow rate room to the consulting room and ensuring there was electronic supply of information and printer working as well, so that we didn't nip in and out of the office to collect further information. We also aim to move the prescription coverage to a more accessible room where it's not an occupied scanning room, as this can also delay our clinic times. In our patient run-through, we had a patient who arrived ready, well-informed, identified very promptly, and he had a really the difference in run-through clinic was seamless, which took significantly less time. Nursing steps were reduced by over 2/3. The consultant steps were increased for that particular clinic, mainly due to a computer problem, which we can look at ways of addressing that. On our repeat percentage load chart, you can see that actually our nursing time fell below the tap time. The consultant was beyond it partly due to the computer issues later in the room, but we also felt that there was time that the nursing staff falling below the tap time. They could be things like setting up the computer in clinic, getting results before available in clinic. That can actually aid the consultant time, bring that down closer to tap time, so there's room for improvement there. We felt that the patient was very complimentary afterwards, and to ensure this continues, we completed standard worksheets so we could, with a process of prescription steps, and follow this up and hopefully be reducible.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Ollie Kayes, I'm a consultant urologist. A part of our vision for the new clinic was that could actually be run by a urologist like myself or Ralph or a specialist nurse, or even bringing in GPs with specialist interest. So as part of the process, we thought it was important to develop a standard work tool, and so we went to task on a pro forma, and we think that this is important for capturing the appropriate data completely and in a uniform fashion. So it doesn't matter who's doing it, the information you gain and file will be the same for every patient. We then took that to the home teams, to the nurses and the other colleagues in the department for testing, primarily for reproducibility, ease of use, and to see if there are any omissions. The other areas that we've built into the form are safety checks and check boxes, so that we want to make sure that the form is filled out completely, filed appropriately, and we've made mandatory boxes and highlighting these through the print services to make sure that in 100% of cases that these are filled out, because they are very important for determining the next step for the patient along the pathway.
Hello, I'm Sinead Langton and I'm a sister in the Paul Science Department. As part of improving our patients' experience, we looked at patient information. Before improvements, we identified that accessing information was time-consuming, disorganised and with no defined structure. The system required standardisation to ensure patients were receiving the same level of information. Working in conjunction with the ideas form and applying the 5S principles learnt this week: sorting, simplifying, sweeping, standardising and using self-discipline. Our aim was to make the TERP information leaflets accessible to all the service users. And as an improvement, we have created an accessible file dedicated to TERP information available to all our service users on iDrive. And as a safeguard, in case of IT system errors, we've created a TERP information drawer and applied a Kanban system to ensure all stock level is maintained. And we have completed a standard work form for all our staff to adhere to. We found it really encouraging in how the home team responded to the implementation of the new system, as they could clearly see the positive impact this would have for our patients at the Paul Sykes Centre.
So also this week we looked at the defects of the patients that were requiring a reassessment. A patient that was having the surgery in David Beavers would have a 50% chance of having to come back for a reassessment, and that was 68% for those patients having surgery in Jeffrey Giles. So this means overall 64% of patients, TURP, were having to re-attend pre-assessment. So the idea to eliminate this was to add a patient to an active waiting list straight from clinic before they even attend pre-assessment. So that once a patient has a confirmed date for surgery, we would then arrange a pre-assessment appointment. This would mean a patient will not need to re-attend pre-assessment, which would reduce the percentage from 64% to 0. So to achieve this, we've created a flowchart which details each step we need to take to add patients directly to the waiting list from their clinic appointment. And we also produce a standard process to ensure all staff work in the same way.
So I think it's part of our first week working on this. We identified what we've called intuitive waste. It's the sort of things you sit around every day going, oh, we've got these problems, but no one of us could actually identify the measure for that or how big the problem was. So we've gone through that. And now the vision is to take us on the next part of the journey, and this is where the parking area becomes very important and the work that we've set aside to discuss with the sponsors. So we feel that we can build this pathway even better. So we've taken out the initial ways, but we feel there's areas around patient arrival, the information they get before clinic about coming to the clinic, and then actually establishing a one-stop clinic. So those patients who come will not only have a consultation, they can have associated investigations. So we've spoken about flow rate tests that were previously taking an hour, but we think we can also combine flexible cystoscopy, prostate ultrasound, and other biometrics into that process and still have that patient through within an hour. That helps us with removing defects with DNA rates, with subsequent testing, and the delays that it occurs putting people on other pathways. Once they've had a consultation, then we have a very active process for decision to treat or to discharge. So again, limiting the number of patients recirculating through our clinics. And then we've also identified patient preparation and counselling as very, very important areas before patients are put forward for surgery. So that could be, again, nurse-led or consultant or doctor-led, and actually demonstrating catheter care and techniques at this point, and not as we heard earlier with the patient actually in the bed with the catheter in them, saying you've got to look after this, saying this is what you're going to have, and these are the processes you're going to need to have in place before you go home. And if we go to the next slide, linking the two RPIWs, this came out of the first work, and that was trying to identify those patients that we want on the same day discharge. And we set that as a 6-hour assessment process. And that's quite a long way away from what we've got at the moment, 39 hours. But by combining a tool like this, measuring and assessing the patients at an early stage, preparing the patients at an early stage, and doing it in a uniform and standard measure, we can then actually implement the new ways of treating BPH, not just with the standard TURP, but the other areas that we'd like to bring in, so that any patient coming through has a very uniform pathway. And hopefully with the advent of provisional timed slots for their surgery, we'll be able to give them their dates and their surgery in a timely fashion.
So returning to our target progress report, our improvements in the staff walking distance for the nurse were to 64 steps from 226. The consultants increased to 120 from 51, partly due to shut-in for computer equipment. The lead times reduced from 64 minutes 15 seconds to 21 minutes 37 seconds. The quality defect remains at 64% because it wouldn't be fair to say that it's changed at this point. Well, I hope that the illustration on what's been put in place would deliver that on our remeasures, certainly in 60 days. Our 5S project, in terms of the patient information, again illustrated very well by the pictures. We're going to conservatively give ourselves a level 2 because we haven't got every section in level 3 at this point. I think 4 of the 5 are there. We've got a little bit of self-discipline to implement.
So going back to the patient, we couldn't prepare the patient by giving them the letter that we created because we're still in the creation, it's not been finalised yet. So what we did when we phoned the patient at home and read the letter to him, so he knew exactly what preparation was needed. So the patient came in and was seen, and I met him afterwards to thank him for his involvement and ask him what he thought of the day. He thought it was amazing. He said he's never had an appointment. He said he was off the scales. He's never had an appointment where he's been in and out at the right time. Because all of the 21 minutes that he was in the hospital, he was with somebody. There was no waiting time. He was with a nurse or he was with a clinician. And this is what we aspire to for all patients coming to urology clinics. And finally, this is our newspaper. These are the issues that we've been looking at over the week. So it's the problem, it's how we approach it, it's who's responsible and by when. And you can see that a lot of these, we've got 2 that are complete, we've got some that are nearly complete. And so the challenge for the next coming weeks and months is for us to complete all of those to say that we've been successful.
So just to finalise, these are some of our key learnings from this week. Look for waste, measure to understand it better, make a method change. Preparing the patient improves their experience. Valuing thinking about who uses the information we share to guide and design it. And most importantly, and this was a really big learning for us as a team, talk to the patients to understand it from their perspective. And just finally, there's a few thank yous there for the people that have supported the process.